Welcome to World of Marketing Podcast, a Foster Web Marketing production. Here's your host, Tom Foster.
Hey everybody, it's Tom Foster and Jamie Kelly, my guest on the World of Marketing. Woo! Here we are, buddy. And
That's
Jamie,
right.
you've been around the block a couple of times on the World of Marketing here. We like to do a little SEO, little web marketing update every few months, just to make sure that our subscribers are in the know and know what's going on from the genius himself, Jamie Kelly. So Jamie, I know we're going to talk about some very important things today, and this is based on a presentation that you did not long ago for a bunch of doctors. But this applies to anybody, and you're going to talk about it in that way. And this is about local SEO, on-site content optimization, and social media, the three main things that you got to be doing today for digital marketing. Right, buddy?
That's right. You could consider these sort of the three fundamental pillars of building or growing an online digital presence that not only exists and is findable, but generates leads and conversions and new revenue for you as well.
Well, why don't you go ahead and get started and give us listeners and viewers the skinny.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to reiterate what you said a moment ago, these three pillars are local SEO, your ability to rank within Google map listings and elsewhere on other search engines, local search results. Your on-site content optimization, how the content that you add and have existing on your website can be an effective acquisition tool for you. And then finally, how social media fits into all of this. There are tremendous opportunities there that often go underutilized by small businesses of a variety of flavors, legal practices, podiatry practices, and sort of across the board as far as small businesses go. That important social media aspect can often be underutilized or in some cases downright neglected. The first place I want to start though is in local SEO, not in content optimization and on-site SEO. For any small business in which legal practices, law firms, as well as medical practices tend to fall for the most part, your ability to rank well for relevant search terms is going to be heavily influenced by how well or not well your local SEO is being executed. And just to sort of drive this point home in terms of what we mean when talking about local SEO is specifically your ability to be found within what Google and other search engines consider sort of locally oriented searches or searches with a local intent. So if you're searching for law firms near me or pizza places near me or whatever the case may be, as a daily consumer and user of the internet, you probably see these results yourself every day, even if you don't know exactly what they're called. But if you do any sort of search that a search engine determines has local intent, they're going to be serving you those local results before even they serve you the traditional organic results.
And we're talking about mobile too. I mean, primarily mobile. I mean, that's where most of the searches are happening anyway, right?
Yes, and that's a sort of square zero sort of mindset that everybody listening needs to be in. You need to be thinking from a mobile first philosophy, even more so now. Right. I know we've been preaching it for a couple of years, but the importance of positioning yourself as sort of mobile first and how you collect and present this information needs to be sort of a baseline that you use to build everything else off of. So in terms of local SEO, like I mentioned, the importance of it is sort of twofold. One, you don't get to control when and how search engines decide what a sort of locally intended search is. So you need to be positioned well from a local point of view because you're not sure and have no say in whether Google is going to be showing searchers the local results, organic results, some combination of both. Usually it's both, but which illustrates the sort of second important reason for emphasizing the importance of local SEO, which is it's shown above the organic search results as well. If you take a look at, just do any Google search on your phone, and you'll see a certain chunk of the real estate available there on the first page is always going to be occupied by paid ads. A large chunk of it in most instances is going to be occupied by these local search results. The reality of today's digital marketing landscape is that, the ranking #1 organically for your primary keywords is not as great of a position as it used to be, as more and more search result page real estate is instead prioritizing paid advertising and local results. It emphasizes the importance of having solid local SEO fundamentals being taken care of in order for you to rank well in those map results that are, like I said, positioned above the organic results in most
important.
Exactly. So, what it comes down to in terms of how you actually accomplish doing good local SEO is there's essentially two primary factors. In no particular order, the first one I'll talk about is your reviews, the ability that your business has to generate high quality reviews on a regular basis, specifically on your Google My Business profile, but this technique applies across the board in terms of any other review generation site as well. If you're in the legal industry, there are dozens of different legal directories that generate and collate reviews that you should be paying attention to. If you're in any other industry as well, there are plenty of others. Yelp stands out as a major player in this space once you get outside of some of the major search engines. But while any review is going to be better than no review, and take any of them that you can get, assuming they're good ones, regardless of what source they come from. However, you should have a plan to be prioritizing, at least to a certain extent, reviews specifically on the Google My Business platform, because those reviews are going to heavily influence your ability to rank within Google's local search results and their local ranking algorithms. As far as reviews go, it comes down to sort of two major factors: the quality and quantity of the reviews that you have individually, as well as how your reviews stack up against other competitors in that same area. So, essentially, the more reviews you have, the better, and the better those reviews are, the better. The more high quality 5-star reviews that you can get, the better. And ultimately, what it comes down to is establishing a process that is not only productive for you, but also easy to accomplish and efficient for your business. There are a lot of ways to go about accomplishing this, and some of the details may vary to fit the particular needs of your practice, but at the end of the day, you need to work internally with your staff, externally with marketing consultants or whomever else you're using to build your digital marketing presence and build a review generation process and strategy that can effectively increase the number of those reviews you have over time. And of course, with as excellent as everybody is on the podcast here, I would expect that all of these reviews to be coming in at 5 stars.
Right. We'll be asking for a review.
That's absolutely right. And it also sort of highlights one important aspect of this, which is the more you tend to focus on review generation, the more you open yourself up to potential negative feedback as well. And it's a common concern that people have, and it's a question that I address with our clients on a regular basis. Like, how bad is a negative review? What do I do if I receive one? Is this the end of the world? If I get a 1-star review, just what sort of damage can it do? What should my sort of course of action be? And you can offset the influx of negative reviews, because the more reviews that you have, you will accumulate less than perfect reviews over time. It's just not feasible to only generate perfect 5-star reviews over time. Sure, you may get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 of them, but if you're striving to hit several hundred reviews over time, it is not only unlikely that they would all be perfect 5-star reviews, but at a certain point, it begins to erode public trust and perception of your firm and your practice as well. If I, as a consumer, am shopping around for an attorney, for a doctor, for a pizza place, If I see that they have 800 reviews and they're all perfect 5-star reviews, that looks suspicious to me as a consumer. It's just unlikely that any business with that volume of reviews is going to have a perfect track record. To me, that stands out as either potentially manipulated or just so curated as to not present a full coherent picture of the business. As your total volume of reviews grow, don't be deterred and don't be swayed by the fact that you're going to pick up a handful of 4-star, 3-star, even some 1- and 2-star reviews as well. Sure, it's going to pull your overall average down, and it's sad to have your perfect 5-star rating go away, but that's to be expected, and it looks more natural and builds sort of greater trust with the public consumer as your number of reviews are growing. If you have several hundred reviews and a 4.5-ish plus rating, that's, in the mind of a consumer, just as adequate as somebody having a perfect 5-star rating.
Because it's a volume, a quantity.
It is, and you can't expect it to be perfect, and people don't expect and don't want to work with businesses who, whether it's true or not, appear as if they may be.
Well, obviously, you want to have perfect reviews. You want to have that, but I guess the lesson here is not to fixate on it and not trouble yourself with worry about if you have negative or 1-star, 2-star reviews. I've seen 2-star, 1-2-star reviews where the review is actually not so bad. It was just kind of the way that they did they're just tough on their reviews. But I get, your point is valid. If it's the amount of reviews, so don't get scared of getting them because you think you're going to get a bad one. If you get a bad one, do a better job. Don't get bad reviews.
That's another part of the equation as well, too, that we have less control over. But, It's hard to get 5-star reviews if you're not delivering 5-star worthy service. Generally, reviews play 2 factors in your ability to rank within the local search results and as they fit into local SEO. One, they are sort of an algorithmic factor in how Google determines these local ratings, the sort of objective review metrics that you have, the quality and quantity of your reviews as they're stacked up against your competitors. The second important piece that they play is in the public perception, the ability for a potential consumer or client to come in and read what other people have to say, read your responses to both positive and negative reviews is going to go a long way towards turning traffic into conversions and conversions into ultimately new clients, new patients, or other revenue generation. Now, I mentioned there were 2 factors that play into your ability to rank within local SEO, and reviews is one of them. The second major factor, and this one is probably a more important factor overall, is the accuracy and consistency of your local citations. By the phrase local citation, what I mean is any reference to your business elsewhere on the web, outside of your own website, any place that lists your business's name, address, phone number, link to your website, any of those other external third-party websites are considered in this context by Google to be what they call a local citation. It's a citation the same way your research papers in college required citations. You got to cite your sources. And the reason this is important and why Google places such an emphasis on the accuracy of these local citations is because they want to make sure that they are providing the most accurate and most relevant information to their users, the searchers, the people who are looking for pizza places near me.
Right.
So if you're a law firm locally here in the Washington, D.C. area and somebody is searching for, Washington, D.C. personal injury law firms near me or whatever the case may be, that is a search that has local intent and that Google will therefore show local search results for, located above the organic search results. And part of the way that they determine, who to show in that what they call the map pack, when you see the embedded map within the search results, they'll list 3 usually, sometimes 4, sometimes 2 individual local businesses will list their Google My Business profiles. And one of the one of the factors that Google uses to determine who to show up is, well, how positive are we that these businesses are in fact located where they say they are? We can see they've got good reviews, but if we're not certain that they're actually near me for the searcher, we're going to be less likely to show that information, because that's not what the searcher is interested in for this particular search query. And the way they do that is by just checking references, essentially double checking citations. They see on your website that you're located at 123 Main Street. If they go everywhere else online, if they go to your Avo profile, your Justia profile, your Facebook profile, your Instagram handle, your TikTok, whatever, and if they see across the board everywhere, hey, 123 Main Street, 123 Main Street, 123 Main Street, perfect. We are very confident that this business is actually located where they say they are, which is locally relevant to the searcher, and the reviews look good. On top of that, this is a perfect candidate to show them within that local search result. If, however, the opposite is true, where you have your current 123 Main Street address listed on your website, but you moved offices 3 or 4 years ago and never bothered to update that address information across multiple other sources online, Google's going to do the exact same thing, but what they are going to see is very different. They're going to see, hey, over here, this guy says he's located on 123 Main Street. Here I see a different address. I see some third address over here. I don't even know where this came from. I see this other second address listed in a couple places. I do see 123 Main Street listed in a few places as well. But the bottom line is my level of confidence that the 123 Main Street address is correct is low compared to if they were to see that supporting evidence across multiple other sources. And that can have a very tangible negative effect on your ability to rank locally within those map results and those local search results. So it's of critical importance that you actively manage those local citations across as many third-party sources as you are able to. There are going to be dozens, if not hundreds of these across the web. Plenty that you have heard of and plenty that you have never heard of, but that does not diminish the importance of the citation itself. Even if the website that it's hosted on you've never heard of, you suspect nobody uses, it's irrelevant to a certain extent because it is still a source of information that Google is going to be using to sort of cross-reference the information that you've provided them, and it needs to be not only accurate, but as much as possible, like verbatim, character by character, consistent would be ideal. If you're 123 Main Street, you should choose, are we going to be street, S-T-R-E-E-T, or are we going to be street, S-T period, and apply that across the board as correctly and as consistently as possible across as many different sources as possible.
Wow. And, you know, you can make this mistake so easily, and this gets messed up for you. Just the way the web is kind of janky. And so when things get copied to new websites, pulled from another website, old data, form you filled out or somebody else filled out that didn't fill out the same way that you did, you know, there's so many, and there's hundreds and hundreds of these directories that Google looks to for citations. That is opportunity for the screw up. And, you know, part of the job is the maintenance of just making sure that this is correct. And it's such an important job. Is kind of boring as it might sound, but, and there's software that you can use that will help you keep track. Yext is one that we use, and others that complement Yext, to make sure that all these directories are correct, to, because it's the most important thing in next to reviews, is making sure that your information is correct. And it's so simple to do once you stay on top of it.
It's very simple, but at the same time can become very tedious and
Right.
time consuming as well too. As you mentioned, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of these citation sources, and manually updating them can become a challenging task to accomplish. A lot of them you may have access to. I would hope everyone listening here has easy access to things like their Google My Business profile, their Yelp profile, Facebook, Twitter, their social media presence, maybe a handful of other industry-specific things like Avo and Justia, ZocDoc, Health Grades, those sorts of things. But once you get past that, you're going to very quickly get into a lot of places that have your information that you didn't put there. They've pulled it from other sources themselves. You don't have access. You've never created a profile for this site. And it's a logistical challenge and nightmare in some situations to try and manually keep track of and update all of these things. And Tom, as you mentioned, there are a handful of different software tools available to help you proactively and sort of in a semi-automated fashion update a lot of these citations in a time-efficient way, what Buster would call a force multiplier.
Very
So,
good.
at the end of the day, it's a relatively straightforward challenge. It's pretty simple to wrap your head around, and it's just a matter of execution. It can be tedious. It can be boring. It means pouring through spreadsheets. It means creating and updating profiles on all of these websites. It means submitting information and waiting who knows how long for them to get back to you and confirm that the updates have gone live. But these are not insurmountable challenges, and the importance of accomplishing this and the potential benefit of accomplishing it well very much outweighs the sort of time and energy investment required to do it,
Right.
especially if you're making use of some of these software tools available to automate some of these processes.
You got,
Also,
is that it for the local SEO stuff, or are we moving on to content, or?
well, we could talk more local SEO all day if we wanted to, but those are the two most important factors for establishing a solid and workable, effective local SEO strategy. Remember, the goal ultimately is to generate visibility within Google's search results and local search results specifically. And the way you accomplish that is simply by proactively managing the citations that you have available elsewhere online via third-party sources, as well as building the quality and quantity of your reviews over time. If you accomplish those two things, you will insert yourself within those local map results in a way that is very effective for driving new business. And then once they're on your website, you can convert them via any of the methods that you've proven effective over time as well. But local SEO and local search is not the only way to generate traffic and new business as well. It is important not to neglect sort of foundational and fundamental elements of traditional organic SEO as well. Now, I know, Tom, this is something you and I have discussed many times over the years on podcasts, webinars, and in person and on stage, but it bears repeating because it is still, like I said, sort of the fundamental elements of your ability to generate visibility, traffic, leads, conversions, and revenue through digital marketing. And a lot of it is built upon a solid SEO foundational baseline that generates this visibility for you. And what it comes down to essentially is producing content that is well written, informative, and educational, is optimized in a way that makes it easily digestible not only by search algorithms but also by human readers, perhaps more importantly by human readers. And it's just a matter of getting the right information structured in the right way that Google and the other search engines can easily understand what you're talking about, who you're speaking to, and they make up a non-negligible portion of total search traffic.
Okay.
I would be remiss not to mention them at least.
That's right.
But if we're all prioritizing Google here primarily, I think is a fair assumption. But do not completely neglect Bing in particular, and other important search engines, or like sub search engines like YouTube's ranking algorithm, the Facebook and Instagram ranking algorithms as well. All of those operate at a high level very similarly, but there are individual differences between them that if you want to really get into the weeds and maximize your sort of SEO juice to the max, it's important to understand how those minor differences can reflect across different search engines. But what we're here to cover today are sort of the broad strokes of general high-level SEO best practices for content production. And it starts with content production itself. If you're not generating new content for your website consistently and on a regular basis, it's going to be very difficult to move the needle when it comes to organic search rankings and traffic generation. Not to mention leads and conversions and revenue. All of those go out the window if you're not getting eyes on your website and looking at these conversion tools that you have available. So it starts with building a solid content production strategy. What topics exist already on the website, which do not? How can we fill those gaps over the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be? When we get into the social media section here in a few minutes, there's a lot of overlap between your organic content production and how that can be recycled and reutilized on social media as well. But establishing a content production strategy, building a content calendar, and sticking to it, actually publishing content, again, regularly and consistently, is going to be the first step that all of these other steps build upon. And if you're not in a position to be able to execute that regularly, then that's, I would say, the first hurdle that needs to be solved. This is a common issue that we see across the board. A lot of times it's just a lack of commitment to long-term content production strategies that tends to be one of the bigger roadblocks for project success.
So I just got off the phone or off a coaching call with Dr. Andrew Schneider, who just passed 1,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel.
Nice.
And he has done that purely by adding a piece of video content that goes to his website through DSS and then onto YouTube, and optimized them properly. And he went from 0 to hero. And he was showing me the charts of these just huge trends and swings. Obviously the topic, some are more interesting than the others, but and then those people, even though they might see the video on YouTube, those are being driven to his website, and he's got ebooks for offers there that they're ordering. And people are coming in like constantly, and they're like, I saw your video. Somebody that lived in California that was moving to Houston had been a subscriber and ended up going to him when he moved to Houston because he was a subscriber on YouTube and saw him on YouTube. So Jamie is right. We're talking about content. And yeah, I'm bringing up YouTube videos, but it's all the same.
That's content.
Yeah, that's content. It's cool content. It's content that can be used in a variety of ways. And there is a skill to it, I would say, a skill to doing video content. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Like this is the foundation, the most important part of your content, of your marketing, your web marketing, is getting content up on your website.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right. And video production and video optimization itself probably warrants a whole episode to its own, just because of how much opportunity there is there. Today, I'm focusing specifically on written content because it still tends to be the primary driver of most website content production. However, know that some of these broader concepts can absolutely be applied to YouTube optimization, to video production strategies and the like as well, even if they're not specifically text-based mediums once you get outside of website content. Right. But if you are talking written content, which even if you are going to make a heavy push into video production, you should not be completely neglecting written content production at the same time. They really should be done in tandem or in addition to rather than. But like I mentioned, step one, establish a production schedule that you can stick to with relevant and coherent topics that are going to be engaging to your readers. The second step is producing the content itself, writing it in a way that is going to be good. For lack of a better term, it needs to be professionally produced. It needs to be top notch. A great way to sort of see how you stack up is to sit down and write your article and think, what search query would I want this article to show up for? If somebody goes to Google and types in whatever, this is what I would want them to be searching for that would trigger this particular article to show up. Go search that yourself and see who the top 2 or 3 websites are that have the highest ranking content for that particular search query that you're trying to rank for. And then compare your article to theirs. Is yours better or worse than what's already ranking 1, 2, 3, even 4, all the way down through the first page. If you're seeing significant differences in the quality of the copywriting or anything else that goes into building a good web page, then you need to be able to close that gap before you can ever expect to really outrank some of those pre-established well-ranking articles that you're trying to insert yourself into sort of the competition with. Assuming that you have a very well-written, thorough article that's ready to rank well, there are a handful of sort of on-page elements that make up a web page, HTML elements that are heavily weighted within Google's organic ranking algorithm, that are sort of your biggest, most effective levers for affecting organic search ranking visibility. If the goal is to rank highly organically for your target search queries, then you need to have a pretty solid understanding of how these particular page elements function within that search algorithm and how you can manipulate them to not only provide better content to the search algorithms and rank higher, but to ultimately provide better, more easily understandable content for the human readers who are going to be finding these articles as a result of the high rankings. And I think we'll have some homework for everybody to go along with this. We'll have some written material. We'll have some written materials that we can share with everybody on the website if you want to go grab that, so you don't have to be furiously scribbling notes here as we're talking. But the four major elements that I want to cover today, the most important on-page elements for content optimization, are the following. These four are the four areas that you need to be most familiar with and understand the function of in order to generate high-ranking organic content. And they're the page title and the page headline, two different things. We'll cover the difference and the similarities and differences thereof here in a moment. Your content subheadings, how you break up your content into easily digestible chunks utilizing your subheadings, as well as internal linking within the article itself, linking to other related topics within your own website, potentially even out to other external websites. But these four factors, the page title and headline, the subheadings that you utilize within the content, and then the structure that you build utilizing internal links within your own website, are probably the four most relevant factors for on-page content optimization to build not only high-quality, well-written content, but high-quality, well-written content that's going to rank well within Google search algorithm as well. And so I want to start with page titles. The page title is an HTML element. If you were to look up the source code of any particular web page, you could search for and find the page title. It's just a defined element that exists as the first place and one of the more heavily weighted places that Google looks when determining what a particular page is going to be about. If you were to look at the full HTML of any web page, the title tag itself is actually placed pretty close to the top. As Googlebot and other search algorithm bots come in and crawl the website, it's one of the first things they look for page by page, and it's located there at the top, so it's very easy to find. That page title should be a clear and concise description of what the article, what the page is going to be about. There should be no uncertainty or ambiguity in terms of how that page title prepares you for what you're going to find in the information in the rest of the article. From a sort of front-end perspective, you see page titles utilized in a few different places. The most common place that you'll see page titles, if you're ever curious to see, well, what is the title of this page? It is what shows up in the tab of your browser, up where you would create and open and close new tabs. The information at the top of any tab that you have open in your browser is that page's page title. Now, that may or may not match the sort of what we may just colloquially think of as the article title once you get down into the body of the page itself. But this is the page title element is, like I said, not only one of the first places that the algorithm bots look for when determining the topic of a website, it's also one of the more heavily weighted ranking factors within the organic search algorithm. So this is a great place to include high quality, relevant keywords for your article. As you're producing new content for your website, you should have in mind 1, 2, 3, a handful of potential relevant keywords for that article. What is the purpose of this article? We want it to rank for this term or this handful of related terms, and including some or one or context depending, possibly multiple iterations of that keyword within your page title is essential to generating good keyword visibility, because it is weighted so heavily within the ranking algorithm. If you do not have your primary target keywords utilized in your page title, Google doesn't see that as sort of the gist of your article. Well, they don't mention car accident attorneys anywhere in the title. Why would I assume this page was about car accident attorneys? The page title is sort of setting the expectations for what Google is looking for and what they can expect to find, and what their users could expect to find as you continue down the page. There are a few things to be aware of when it comes to page titles, however, and the first is that there is a sort of soft character limitation that you have available when creating page titles and article titles. It's about 60-ish characters. It's actually based on like number of pixels. So if you've got a bunch of W's and L's in there, it would get cut off sooner than if you just had a bunch of lowercase i's. But 60-ish characters is a pretty good target to be aiming for when generating your relevant keyword-rich article titles and page titles. It's important to note that character limitation is not necessarily a ranking factor itself. If you have a title that is longer than 60-ish characters, it doesn't mean that you're going to rank worse as a result. All it means is that the longer you make it, the more you run the risk of Google cutting it off in the search results. And I'm sure you've seen this before just doing searches yourself. Some page titles appear within the search results very cleanly, very succinctly. Other longer ones get truncated with an ellipsis after a certain point. You should always err towards the side of the benefit of the human reader, and don't create content exclusively for the search engines. And in some cases, that means having a title longer than what the ideal recommended length would be. But you need to finish your thought. You need to have a coherent page title, and if that means going a little bit long, that's totally fine. You're not going to get penalized algorithmically for it. The only potential downside is that longer title now may get cut off when it's displayed in the search results. So knowing that and keeping that in mind, just make sure you get your point across closer to the beginning of that title rather than saving it all for the end. There's a lot of basic sort of journalistic practices still at play here. Don't bury the lead, get straight to the point, especially knowing that if you're going to have a long title and it may get cut off, make sure that at least the first 60 characters tell close to a coherent story, so a human searcher would be able to understand what to expect once they click on that link and find the page.
Good deal. Well, that page title character limit keeps getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Right?
It does.
It was like 170 characters, then it was like 140, now it's 60, keeps getting shorter and shorter. But I guess the point here is that you want to, well, you made your point very clearly, but you probably want to then make sure that your keywords, well, if the keywords have no impact, then it's more important in terms of like the search. It's really just what is showing up in display. The point is making sure that page title makes sense, more importantly than jamming keywords at the front of it. Yeah. And you want to have a coherent thought, and then your keywords can come later, so you're not affected even though they're not showing up in the listing because they're all truncated.
You definitely want to include a keyword at the minimum within your page title, but it should not have to be shoehorned in there or added after the fact. If you've written your article well and it aligns well with what you have that target keyword or target keywords to be, you should be able to very naturally naturally fit in some version of that keyword within your article title. And if you don't, if you're struggling to get it in there, then perhaps there's a mismatch between the content of your article and what perhaps you've got the wrong keywords that you're targeting for that particular article. And you need to either readjust the article or choose different keywords that are going to be a better natural fit.
It's challenging doing this. This is a challenging thing to do, but you can get by.
It certainly can, and there's no right or wrong answer in any given situation either. There's multiple equally good ways to accomplish this sort of thing. There's not one correct or incorrect way to accomplish it per article. I want to move on, though, to our second important sort of on-page optimization element, which is the page headline. It is very closely related to the page title. From an HTML perspective, it is a different element. It's a different HTML element. It's called an H1. H is in heading, and there are multiple H headings available for use in any sort of HTML document building web pages. And H1 is sort of the highest level. They're sort of nested underneath, self-nesting. Within the article itself, you can use the H2s as subheadings, H3s, H4s. They function and operate similar to the way you would build an outline if you were outlining an article you were preparing to write, doing research, that sort of thing. Think of them in that sort of structure. And that's actually a very useful way to not only research and draft your content, but to at the same time sort of almost by accident, create a really well-structured article that has very natural breaking points for inserting these H1 page headlines and H2 subheadings and beyond. All of these HX headings are excellent opportunities to include keywords, and I'll talk about the H2 and other subheadings as we go on, but the H1 is your page headline. This is where if you load a web page, the page title is displayed up there at the top within the browser tab itself. On the actual web page itself, you've got a header, you've got some navigation, but once you get down to the actual article, it has a title. It has articles have titles. That is, in almost all instances, this H1 headline or H1 heading. And it functions, its purpose is nearly identical to the page title. It should prep human readers and search bots for what the rest of the article is going to be about. It should be clear and concise and to the point. It should utilize whatever primary target keywords you have identified for this particular article. And one of the advantages that this H1 heading has over your page title element, for instance, is that it is not limited. It does not suffer from a character limitation the way page titles were. So if you feel like you really struggled to trim your page title down to 60-ish characters, know that the leash is off a little bit when it comes to your page headline. You can create a complementary headline that expands on the topic a little bit. Don't make it 300 words, of course. It's not only going to look ugly, but it's going to read clunkily and everything too. But because you don't have that character limitation the way you do on the page title, you can sort of give your content a little more room to breathe when building that page headline. And again, the important element to remember here is that these are heavily weighted within Google's ranking algorithm, and as a result are prime candidates to include your target keywords for that particular article that you're publishing and producing. Now, I mentioned subheadings a little bit when talking about the headlines. They are all sort of part of the same family of HTML elements. They're all these HX subheadings, and like I said, they sort of nest within each other the way you would build an outline. H2s should only exist sort of as subsections of H1s. H3s should only exist as subsections of H2s, and sort of all the way down the list. For most content production purposes, however, most people are only going to be using one H1 as their page headline and likely a handful of H2s as sort of section subheadings within their articles. These H2 subheadings, and you'll probably hear me use the two terms interchangeably, are useful and functional for a couple reasons. One, just like everything else I've already mentioned here, heavily weighted on page ranking factors. And as a result, are prime candidates for including your primary keywords within them. Now, this does not mean that you just take the same one keyword and make sure it's in every single one of these things, but you likely have, like I said, a handful of similar related keywords that are all sort of saying the same thing, permutations on the same idea. And because you have so many opportunities throughout the page, top to bottom, you should be utilizing a sort of broad spectrum of different variations of these target keywords you're trying to generate organic rankings for. The second and in some instances almost more important function of these H2 subheadings is they just visually break up the content and make it easier for human readers to digest and understand and skip around and skim. Quality content is often lengthy, especially within the medical and legal industries. These are complex topics that require in-depth examination to explore adequately. And as a result, we recommend when publishing web content, you should be thinking minimum 900 to 1,000 words for most topics, and that can expand out to 15, 16, 1,800 words easily for some of these more complex topics. If you're going longer than that, then you begin to have opportunities to, well, maybe this would be better broken up into sort of a multi-part series of articles, perhaps, because the fact of the matter is human attention spans are not great a lot of the times, and these subheadings can be excellent tools to combat that. People are faced with a 1,200-word article, no matter how well written it is. If it is just a big wall of text with no paragraph breaks, no subheadings, people's attention is going to wander and fade pretty quickly, and it's going to make it more difficult for them to find answers to whatever sort of specific question they may be looking for within your article. If you instead break it up utilizing these subheadings, it makes it less intimidating from a visual perspective. It makes it easier for somebody to quickly scan or skim and find the relevant section that they're looking for. And also just from an algorithmic perspective, these subheadings are excellent places to insert keywords that help Google and the other search bots understand and comprehend your article sort of holistically, and also factor that into their overall ranking algorithm. So for many reasons, utilizing these subheadings is sort of a must-do as part of your content optimization process. You should be thinking before you even begin writing your article, or as you're researching and drafting your article, what are my subsections going to be? If I have a general idea of what I want my headline to be, I want to make sure I have this headline or this keyword referenced in it. How can I expand upon that in a way, utilizing these subheadings in a way that also allows me to capture several of these other primary or target keywords that I want to be targeting with this particular article as well. So use that sort of use the structure of these headings to your advantage. It can help you plan content. It can help you write a story. It can help you add a sort of beginning, middle, and end to the articles that you're producing. And as a result, you'll have better content, which ranks better, and you'll have better keywords in the right places, which is also going to help things rank better.
Very good.
The fourth of these major sort of primary on-page ranking factors that I want to cover briefly is internal linking. Do not think of each of these articles that you're producing as standalone. They are influenced by and relevant to each other just naturally due to the nature of the topics that you're covering. You may sit down and decide, this month or this quarter I'm going to produce only content about topic X, and here's 30 different articles that we can produce, all within this sort of umbrella of one sort of macro topic. Those articles, even before they become articles, just those ideas and topics link together very naturally, and you can utilize sort of the linking structure of your website and the just ability to create hyperlinks within your content to link those topics together structurally within your website as well. If you're writing, about car accident articles, you may link to another article about common injuries or how to deal with medical bills or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of natural overlap to these topics that you can utilize to your advantage to link together structurally with your website, which is going to accomplish a couple of things. One, it's going to make the overall structure of your entire website easier and more, more easily understood and digested by the search bots. If they come in, crawl your whole website top to bottom, they're looking for the sort of order and structure that they would expect because they're robots. They're crunching zeros and ones, and they're expecting a sort of natural and easy to follow structure of the content that you're producing, and you can use that to your advantage by linking your articles together in a way that creates a sort of hierarchy and a structure that makes sense for human readers as well as for the algorithmic search bots. The second way that this becomes relevant and useful for you is that you have the ability to choose the linked text to be whatever you want. You can create a hyperlink on any web page. Oftentimes you just see click here and it will take you to somewhere else. That's a great example of how a hyperlink works, but it's a terrible example of a well-optimized internal link. You can utilize your keywords in it's called anchor text. The text the blue underlined clickable text of a link is called anchor text, and you should choose with foresight your anchor text pretty carefully. It should include relevant keywords relevant to whatever that article that you're linking out to is. So, if you're linking to an article about how to deal with the insurance company or whatever, how to deal with the insurance company after a car accident would be great anchor text. Click here to learn about how to deal with the insurance company would be an example of that done poorly, because the Google bots and the other algorithm bots are going to utilize the actual anchor text as part of their overall sort of ranking picture when determining how well you rank. So you should choose proactively and be aware of precisely what you're linking to and how, using that anchor text to build a coherent site structure and hierarchy that makes sense. Again, a common theme here, but it needs to make sense and be easily digestible and understood by not only the ranking bots, but also the end human users.
Very good. And so it's very important to do linking. So what about linking externally from my website? Does that help me or?
No. Short answer is no, not from an algorithmic perspective. If you link to other authoritative websites, if you link to Wikipedia for the definition of a car accident or whatever, I've seen this happen because people have, in some cases, fundamental misunderstandings of sort of the purpose and function of internal linking. Linking to external sources is effective to the human users because it is, you're citing your sources, you're creating a bibliography the same way you would, again, as if you were back in school and being graded on your paper. If you're referencing some national highway safety study about the rise of car accidents tied to distracted driving or something, it would be excellent to link to that study so the human user can see for themselves the data and get additional information from an authoritative source on the matter. But the Google bot is not going to reward you for just linking to some more authoritative source. It's the link is there and it's going to exist and it's useful for the human user, which can have a sort of trickle-down effect on your overall rankings. But linking externally by itself is not an algorithmic factor. What is true, although we're not going to have time to cover it in this episode today, the opposite is true, where having high quality authoritative links pointing to you instead of you pointing to them is a very effective way to build your organic visibility. However, that's going to be beyond the scope of what we have time to cover today.
Right.
And
I want to just be very clear about this because it's a nuance. Is that the point that you're making here is that internal linking, and when we say internal linking, we're talking about linking in between your own web pages for navigational purposes and ease of use and user intent is why that's important, and that helps the search engines scroll and go through your website and index it. That's the point of it. And when we're doing external linking, it's not that you don't want to do that, because sometimes it's important to do that. You're helping others that you're linking to, and you want to get links coming to you from others. So it's an important thing to do. It just doesn't benefit you any SEO points. That's the nuance there. Okay, so
Yeah.
we covered a whole lot of stuff. I think we covered local SEO, we covered content, and the last thing on the list we're going to talk about today real quick is social media. Something
Social
that,
media
yeah. So what do you got to
is,
say about social media?
don't overthink it is really the sort of real quick takeaway here. You have so much more opportunity than just using it as a second version of your blog where all you're doing is republishing the same thing that you just published on your website. Yes, it can be a great avenue to expand the reach and audience of content you're producing, but if that's all you're using it for, there's so many other missed opportunities. For any small business like this, especially service-based, legal, medical, the true benefit of social media is really the opportunity to humanize your firm or your practice and to get people to see beyond the white coat, beyond the suit and tie and briefcase, and to connect with you human to human. These personal connections are what's going to drive a lot of people's decision making ultimately, whether they realize it or not. Tom, I know you're a big fan of saying people buy from who they like, and your social media presence is a great opportunity to present yourself as a person ready to be liked. Here are the things about either me personally or about my business as a whole that makes us fun and different from the guy next door and personable. Utilize your social media feed to syndicate your content, sure, but there's, like I said, so many more opportunities to go beyond that. It could be as simple as, highlighting a staff member of the week, celebrating birthdays, use it as a sort of pseudo personal profile as well. Post pictures of your fishing trip or the charity 5K that people from your office participated in over the weekend. Those are the sorts of things over time that are going to differentiate yourself from the competitor who's using it only as a sort of content recycling center and not really producing anything that allows them to create real human connections with their audience.
Yeah, and it's a two-way street. You need to participate. You need to go out there and give love to other social pages, to other people, make comments, like, share. You can't just go in there and do only yourself there. That doesn't work that way in social media.
Well, the sort of old school approach was going to all the Chamber of Commerce meetings and just networking and glad handing and schmoozing, and you can do all of that digitally now too. Like you said, be active and be a proactive participant in your local community through social media and through other means, and it's going to pay off long term as you just. It's about creating visibility and awareness of you as an individual, of you as a business, and reinforcing the sort of core values that you're trying to present as a business function.
So I get it. Social media is important. I'm not a big fan of social media. Are there tools to help me do social media so that it makes it an easier pill for me to swallow?
There are, absolutely. There are plenty of tools that can help you aggregate posting and pre-schedule posting. You can link multiple different platforms into one sort of aggregated dashboard so you can plan out, okay, here's my 3 Facebook posts for the week, here's 2 tweets, a Google My Business post, whatever the case may be. In terms of time efficiency, you can manage everything from one dashboard there, which is a great time-saving tool and a great way to just keep track of everything that you have going on in one place rather than multiple locations. On top of that, and we haven't even really touched on this, but the review elements of social media too, are an important factor for all of the reasons we discussed sort of at the beginning of the episode here. But there are additional tools available to help you manage and monitor, sort of review specific information on social media platforms as well, too. So if you're already paying close attention to your reviews in general, something like that begins to make sense. But even outside of that, there are tools that you have available to just more efficiently manage sort of multiple disparate social media accounts across the web.
Very good. Well, bro, this has been a very long podcast, but we had a lot of good information that Jamie shared today, everybody. That stuff is tried and true. Jamie, thank you so much for your time on this.
Of course. Happy to.
Jamie's a busy guy, but this was such a great, just little reminder of what's important. Your local SEO, reviews, making sure that your address is consistent across the board, content, paying attention to your page title, to your H1s, your H2s, your internal linking. Remember what's important about linking, and also social media participating. So those are the big things you got to be focusing on. If you need any help, hey, we're here to help you. Foster Web Marketing, that's what we do all live long day. Build websites and help people with their SEO and their digital marketing. Well, Jamie, thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Tom. Always a pleasure. And, like you said, we barely scratched the surface on a lot of this stuff. If anybody has follow-up questions. Version. Yeah, it may. Speaking of multi-part series, we could extend this one for, I feel like, as long as we needed to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll bring it back. All right, buddy. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. It's Jamie and Tom on the World of Marketing. Have a great, great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Hold on.